Okay, so some stories are about love and some are about loss. This story, well, it's about something much darker. It's about what happens when a world built on perfect control collides with a mind that's tragically fragile. It creates this vortex of manipulation and obsession that, in the end, leads to complete annihilation. This is the Langley Mercer case. Our story starts in a place called Oakage Heights. You know, the type of town, exclusive, perfect lawns, the kind of place where people believe nothing bad can ever happen. Well, on one chilly November morning, that whole illusion was just shattered. A horrific discovery was made that would leave a scar on that town forever. Inside the massive estate of a well-known philanthropist, Victoria Langley, investigators walked into a scene of just unimaginable rage. The attack wasn't just brutal, it was deeply personal. It took this palace of elegance and sophistication and turned it into something so awful that one veteran detective said it wasn't a murder. He called it annihilation. As the news got out, that was the question on everybody's mind. I mean, Victoria Langley was an institution. Her name was literally on hospital wings. She could make or break a person's career. Nobody could even begin to imagine that the person capable of this level of violence was someone who had once taken an oath to protect them. To really understand how this happened, you have to understand the two people at the center of it all. Their meeting was a total collision of two completely different worlds, one of immense power and the other of just earnest ambition. And that collision, well, it turned out to be fatal. So on one side, you have Victoria Langley. She's 54, a wealthy widow who had absolutely perfected the art of controlling every single aspect of her life, including her series of younger, very temporary lovers. And on the other side, you've got Officer Jack Mercer, just 25 years old, a rookie cop whose whole life was basically built on a deep, desperate need for someone to tell him he was doing a good job. You can already see it, right? The power imbalance here was just huge and dangerous from the moment they met. So they crossed paths at a police charity event. But you have to understand, this was not some chance encounter. For Victoria, this was a hunt. She saw this serious young officer, clearly uncomfortable in her world of wealth and power, and she didn't see a public servant. Nope. She saw a challenge. She saw her next acquisition. And Victoria, well, she had a method. It was a well-oiled machine. First, she'd identify her target. Then she'd create a fake reason to get close. In Jack's case, it was a phony security consultation for her estate. Then she began this meticulous process of investing in him. So the crucial point here is that this was a pattern, a cycle of seduction and then disposal that she had perfected over years. Jack was just the next one in line. She didn't just seduce him, she completely remade him. It's like a classic playbook for psychological control. Sure, she showered him with fancy gifts and amazing experiences, but her most powerful tool was her attention. She remembered every little detail about him, making him feel like he was the most important person in the world. And at the same time, she was slowly, carefully cutting him off from his own life, until his entire world revolved around her and her alone. But here's the thing about Victoria. For her, these relationships had a season, and just like summer turns to fall, her interest in Jack started to fade. It was the same way it had happened with all the others who came before him. The end was coming. From Jack's point of view, the whole thing just fell apart fast. It must have been so confusing. All that constant attention suddenly vanished, replaced by silence. Then, at an art gallery opening, he was introduced to his replacement, a sculptor named Marcus Reynolds. He had to stand there and watch Victoria use the exact same dance of intimacy on Marcus that she had once used on him. When Jock finally confronted her about it, her response was just devastating. There wasn't a big fight, no tearful breakup, just this one line delivered with this casual cruelty that completely shattered his sense of reality. It was more than just an ending. It was like she erased everything he thought they ever had. That dismissal, it was more than Jack's mind could take. His grief didn't turn into healing. Instead, it twisted and curdled into a dangerous, all-consuming obsession. And that obsession, that was the final act of this whole tragedy. The effect on his life was immediate, and it was catastrophic. That promising rookie cop just disappeared. His performance at work plummeted. He started illegally using police databases to track Victoria's every move, and eventually, he was placed on administrative leave. His entire identity, which had been so carefully rebuilt around her, was just collapsing in on itself.
His home literally turned into a shrine for his obsession. The walls were covered with photos of her, maps of her movements, timelines connected by red string. It was like something out of a movie. He wasn't just a heartbroken guy anymore. He was living in a completely alternate reality where he was still a part of her life, a protector, just watching her from a distance.
When he was finally arrested, just sitting calmly in his car near the crime scene, his confession was absolutely chilling. He didn't see what he did as murder. No, in his twisted mind, it was a final, necessary conversation. It was, as he put it, the only way to get closure. At his trial, psychiatric experts gave it a clinical name. They diagnosed him with a severe delusional disorder. They believed it was triggered by what they called a narcissistic injury from Victoria's extreme abandonment of him. He truly could not tell the difference between the reality of their breakup and the elaborate fiction he'd built inside his own head. The trial captivated the whole country, but the story didn't end when the verdict came down. The consequences of this deadly obsession rippled outward, affecting the entire community and forcing a police department to face its own serious failures. After deliberating for 3 days, the jury came back. The verdict was guilty of first-degree murder. They completely rejected the defense's argument that he wasn't fully in his right mind. The judge sentenced Jack to life in prison with no possibility of parole. But the fallout was huge. The Oakage Police Department got hammered for missing countless red flags in Jack's behavior, which led to major reforms in their psychological screening process. And the community itself, it was left with this permanent scar, a haunting reminder that the worst dangers don't always come from strangers, but can grow out of the toxic dynamics happening right behind closed doors. And so we're left with this really unsettling question. This case forces us to look at those murky lines between manipulation and responsibility. Now, let's be crystal clear. Nothing could ever justify Jack's horrific actions. But his story is a dark, cautionary tale about the devastating power of psychological control. And it leaves you wondering, when a predator creates a monster, who is the victim?